We're now going to move on to while loops. This is a different looping construct in for loops. So with while loops, the code block again is repeated, but only while the condition is true. So the way you write a while loop is as follows. Use the keyword while and then a condition. This is a condition that evaluates as true or false. It is the same type of condition with an if or elif statement. So we've written these conditions before. So what's going to happen is that this code block will run over and over again. It will repeat as long as this condition is true. So the way it really works is that it'll check the condition. If it is true, it'll run the code block. And then it'll recheck the condition at the start of every iteration. So it always checks the condition at the start of each iteration. And then if it's true, then it will run this code block. If it's false, then it will not run and it'll just continue on with the rest of the program with whatever lines are outside of the code block. Okay, so let's go ahead and see an example of this. We'll just do a simple countdown example where we're counting down from some number. So let's just set some number like x equal to 5. And we'll say while x is greater than or equal to 0. So while this is true, here's the condition. We're going to test it against the integer 0. Is this true? Right now it is true because x is 5. So we're going to do a code block here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just eventually make this condition false. So it's going to keep running while this is false. So what we're going to do is decrease the value of x by 1. So each iteration x will go 1, and then we'll print out the value of x. We'll say x is x using a formatted string, an f string. So we'll substitute in that value like this. So there's 2 lines in this code block. And then maybe at the very end, and we'll just write something like print countdown finished. So this will only get executed one time. This is not part of the body of the loop. It is part of the normal control flow. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this. It's going to happen very fast. So it says x is 4, then x is 3, then x is 2, then x is 1, then x is 0. It's actually going to say x is -1. So you might be thinking, okay, how did that happen? And then finally, it's going to do countdown finished. So what happens here is that it checks the condition first, and then it decreases the value of x. So it doesn't actually print out x at 5 over here. So it begins at 5. It checks the condition. All right, that is true. Then it decreases the value of 5 or of x to 4. Then it prints that out. So now x is 4. Then it retests the condition. So is 4 greater than or equal to 0? Well, that is true. Then it decreases it to 3 and prints it out. So we're here. It does the same thing for 2 and then 1. So when x is 1, it will make it 0 and it'll print this out. Now when x is 0, it is greater than or equal to 0. So it still is true. And then it gets decreased by 1, so it becomes -1 and gets printed out. So that's where the -1 comes in. What we can do to make this so it doesn't show -1 is put the x minus equals 1 over here. So it'll decrease only after it's printed out the value. Let's go ahead and execute this. So it'll start out at 5. It'll print out 5 first, and then it will decrease it to 4. So it keeps doing that. When x is 1, it will print it out as 1 and then decrease it to 0, which again is true. So it'll run when x is 0 and print it out as 0, and then finally decrease it to -1, which will make this false and will exit the loop. So as long as x is greater than or equal to 0, this code will be run. So it keeps rechecking the condition and then executing the body of the loop, rechecking the condition, executing the body of the loop, and rechecking the condition and executing the body of the loop. So hopefully saying that repeatedly, you understand what the while loop is doing. And then finally, control flow resumes to normal and this statement just gets executed one time. Okay, so there are times where a code block may never get executed. So let me go ahead and copy and paste this over here. So let's just say x begins at -100. So just because you have a loop doesn't mean anything will happen. The code block will get executed one time. If the condition is false right away, it just will never run even once. So let me execute this. So the body of the loop does not run because x is -100. It fails this condition and it just runs this line. Now, you can have what's called an infinite loop with while loops. This is a dangerous situation. It'll happen to you. It's happened to me many times. You can create a loop that just never ends. That's what an infinite loop means. It means that this condition will always be evaluated as true. There's something wrong with your logic. So to create an infinite loop, let's just say instead of decreasing x by 1, we increase x by 1 each iteration. So now x will just get higher and higher. This will always evaluate as true. And I'll show you what to do. So I'm actually going to create an infinite loop here. And running this, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff printed out. Your machine will it will not stop. It'll keep going until it crashes. What you can do is go to kernel over here and click interrupt. So if you click kernel and then interrupt, it'll stop. If you notice there was a little star here. If you see a star here, that means your code cell in the Jupyter Notebook is running continuously. So this printed out, I don't know how long, I'm not going to go to the very bottom, but it just kept printing out because an infinite loop was created. So that is possible, and if that happens to you, that's fine. Just go to kernel and click interrupt and it should stop. If not, you'll have to go back to your terminal or command prompt and just press Control-C twice to just kill the notebook. All right, so that is a little brief introduction to while loops. You have while, then the condition, which is checked on each iteration, and then the code block is repeated as long as the condition evaluates as true.